just need to prepare you that when something goes viral like this, there's going to be negativity as well as positivity. He was so sweet. He was like trying to protect me. And before you look at the comments, you need to know that some people have written some not nice things and they don't necessarily agree with you. And the four things, the really controversial thing was that I'd put that it wasn't to do with intelligence, because it isn't to do with intelligence. You know, I stand by it. And that dyslexia isn't words moving around. And again, that's another whole lie. But basically that negativity had kind of spurred it forwards. Anyway, very quickly that evening, you were watching it as well. I don't know why you were watching it, but you happened to be watching it. And really quickly that evening, you were like, Jo, respond to some of the comments with videos. And at that point, I really didn't understand how TikTok worked. I think I had 79 followers on the Friday. And by the Saturday afternoon, by the time of that video, like posted Saturday night, I suddenly had like 250 followers. Now, I hadn't realized quite how TikTok works. So I like panicked and did like this other video, like, you know, I'm really sorry for those of you that I might have upset, saying that, you know, words isn't moving around. Let me explain to you in a bit more detail what that is. Not realizing that that would go to a cold audience. And again, like I did this 3-minute video, which is really waffly, which is literally just my head talking, the talking head, on the differences between dyslexia and Erlen and visual disturbance and stuff moving around. And that video went mad. And again, I think before we went to bed, that had like 50,000 views, didn't it?
Oh, yes. That's
and I
right.
woke up. So on the Thursday morning, I had 79 followers. By the time I went to bed on the Saturday night, I think I had like 300. And I woke up on Sunday morning and had over 1,000 followers.
Wow. And of course, the thing is that on TikTok, you know, the 1,000 followers is it's sort of like one of those sort of important points that you need to get to, because if you've got a creator account, that's the point that you can put your business link into it. So you know, yes. So getting to that first 1,000 is really crucial.
And I can remember you
since then,
saying,
I mean, you've now got, how many have you got now? You've got
15,500 nearly. Yeah, 15,500. And actually I've doubled. I only had 8,500 2 weeks ago. I had a video that went mega viral last bank holiday weekend, and actually that saw me kind of like double my followers. What I would say is, what's quite interesting, and this is where I come back to my confidence, it's that whole comparing thing. And funnily enough, I've literally just been for a run, which is why I'm a bit red in the face, and I was listening to Fern Cotton and Will Young on her podcast, and they were talking about comparison. And it really resonated with me, because actually comparison can stop you in your tracks. It can really move you kind of out of your lane. And there are some dyslexic accounts on there that have built mega bigger and mega quickly than mine have. And equally, there are some that are not doing as well. And actually, I've stopped looking at those people and looking at followers, because actually followers doesn't really matter. I think what matters to me is that I'm true to myself, and that I'm building relationships and creating content that is serving people and serving my community. That's what's more important to me. And you can have 1 million followers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can build relationships with those people really quickly. And I think that's what I found. When things have gone viral, it's lovely because you get loads of followers, but what you can't do is you can't build the relationships and possibly respond to all of the comments, because you just can't do it that quickly. And actually, what I've really enjoyed about TikTok is building relationships and having connections with people. And I've had a couple of times now where people have commented on new videos saying, oh, just to let you know, I had one yesterday, I'm the person that didn't have exam access arrangements, and I've spoken to school, and I want you to know that I've got extra time and a reader, so thanks for your help. And, you know, somebody else that commented, or just to let you know, because I've watched your videos, I've pushed for assessment and my child got their diagnosis yesterday. Like, that is really important. And I know, you know, you can't possibly know 15,500 followers, but actually, because I'd had little conversations with those people just in comments, not in private messages, you can see the difference that you're making to people's lives, and that's important to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is with with TikTok is that obviously you're obviously, as you say, talking to a cold audience, unlike Instagram where you're talking to a warm audience. But you know, you have had like thousands of likes on your and thousands of comments on your videos, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you've built and so tell us where that's taken you.
Well,
and also that I mean, I think what the misconception is that TikTok is for teenagers only, and you've got sort of young people, you've got parents, and you've got grandparents in your community, haven't you?
Yeah, for sure. I think what I found really interesting is, so what as I said earlier, I'm a bit of a responder, so I think what's quite nice is sometimes when you can't think of content appears in front of you because somebody asks a question and you're like, brilliant, I can make a video about that. So from that point of view, it's really good. I mean, what's really interesting is, so my son noticed to begin with, and of course then my daughter noticed, my 15-year-old, and she was the one I was worried about because she's obviously like that age where she's a teenage girl and social media is everything. And some of the videos I do talk about the children as well, because they are dyslexic. You know, we are dyslexics, are us. And I think that has been one of the things that's been difficult to manage, because I'm aware that potentially their friends might be watching, and I don't want to humiliate them or kind of cause issues for them. But I think when my daughter saw that this video, and the initial video I think has had 170,000 views now, she was like, Mum, you do realise you are TikTok famous? And I was like, wow, I'm not sure I'm TikTok famous, but yes, it's had quite a lot of likes, thanks for that. But what's really interesting is last week when it exploded again and I had that video that went like massive, again, my daughter came down and she was like, Mum, I know you don't want anybody to know that you're on TikTok, but you have got a lot of followers now. And I just need you to know that about 7 people have messaged me this morning to say, God, your mum's on TikTok. She's so cool. She's got so many followers.
Wow.
And actually, I think to begin with, it made me anxious. But then once they've got over that, they're not going to be interested in what I've got to say, the main bulk of them, because the main bulk of my content is not necessarily for teenage kids. You know, my content, my audience is parents of kids and dyslexics themselves. So actually, you know, they might watch a couple of them, but in all honesty, they're going to lose interest because it's not going to be, because I'm not going to be serving them. And you know yourself, when you flick through stuff, you find the stuff in the For You page that serves you and that interests you. But what was interesting was last week they did agree to do a video with me. So we did do a TikTok with, I'm yet to do one with my husband, but we did do, the kids were like, come on Mum, let's do this trend and let's do it together. So yeah, so they did actually do a video together, which was quite interesting. But yeah, I think that it's getting your head around, isn't it? Because TikTok is so different from other platforms.
Yes, it is.
In terms of you're hitting a cold audience all the time and you genuinely do not know who that audience is. And what I found quite interesting to begin with was because I didn't know anybody on TikTok, and there are people out there of my age that I do know that are on it. I had a really interesting, when I had about 2,000 followers, went into a primary school to do some observations, and the TA came up to me and she went, oh, you're that famous TikToker. And I was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that people, and for a minute I'll be honest, it did stop me in my tracks. But I think with Facebook, because of the way that Facebook works, initially it was to connect with friends, wasn't it? And not, yeah. So I'm really aware with Facebook of not posting too much dyslexic content or business content, because I don't want to ostracize people, and I don't want people to unfollow me that I genuinely want to connect with and keep in touch with, you know, people that I went to uni with. So I've been much more mindful about how I've shared my story, how I promote my business on Facebook. Whereas with TikTok, I don't really care less. Like, it's literally, this is my experience today, and I was literally putting it out there. And I think when I realised that there were people I knew watching me, I did feel a little bit uncomfortable for a minute, but feeling uncomfortable isn't necessarily a bad thing, is it?
No.
I did feel a bit uncomfortable for a minute, but again, I think I've rationalized that, thinking, well, do you know what? Judge me if you want to, but you're not on here, and actually you're probably going to follow me and comment to begin with, and if I'm serving and supporting you, you'll continue to follow me, and that's great. But actually, you're probably going to lose interest in me and find somebody else to follow, so it doesn't really matter. So that's been one of the things I've had to get my head around. And the other thing is the negativity. And you know, last night, for example, I had a comment from somebody that told me that my daughter could not be dyslexic because it goes down the male line. Like, and I was like, well, and in my head, like, and then I spiral for a minute. I mean, I love Brené Brown and I rely heavily on her content, and I'm like, shame, vulnerability, lean into it, it's all going to be okay. But I think there is this minute where I kind of doubt myself, and I'm like, well, actually, I'm not a genetic specialist, and then I'm like, no, I've got a diagnosis of dyslexia, and of course girls can be dyslexic, and it may well go down the male line. But actually, when I did my dyslexic training, there was nothing in there about you mustn't diagnose. Do you know what I mean? But for a minute, it does make me kind of hold my breath. But also, it's made me realise how there's really important work to be done in terms of drip feeding and kind of spreading that message. Because sometimes when people write negative comments, you know, when I think about the visual disturbance and the Erlen and the stuff moving around, people are writing comments from their experience, knowledge and viewpoint. And that's okay, because that's their experience and that's what they know. It's my responsibility, if you like, to share what I know from my experience. I certainly don't know it all, and you know, I've definitely learned a lot from watching TikTok and things. But I think it's my responsibility to share what I know from my viewpoint. And if I continue to learn things, because I definitely don't know everything, that's brilliant. But we have to be kind, and we have to just take a step back sometimes and think, well, actually, brilliant, that's your experience and that's your opinion, because that's what you know. But this is my experience and my opinion, and this is coming from what I know. It's okay to disagree, but actually it's okay to admit we're wrong and move forward. So it's been